I'm trying to get the periscope going. Hold on, folks. Give me a second. Thought I had this, and now I can't type fast enough. Resource guarding, starting. Swipe, double tap to flip camera. There we go. There we go. Okay. So I have Facebook Live going. I have Periscope going. Despite spending 21 years at Microsoft, this is all new technology to me and sometimes makes me crazy. So I may have a little bit of challenge about either one of these technologies, but I'm going to do my best. I will say, if you're here, please just let me know you're here, but I'm going to ask that we hold sort of the major questions to the end. Siobhan, I wish there was a way to make you a presenter. Glad to see you here, and I know I need to call you about some other stuff, but I'm going to ask everybody to sort of hold major questions to the end, because if I'm talking, I will most likely miss them, because I'm not very good at multitasking on the little screens while I'm making a presentation about other things. You can type through here. Great. So I have right at 7 o'clock, so I'm going to roll ahead and get started. I wanted to spend a little bit of time doing more of these Facebook Live sessions for people who have been following along and are really continuing to struggle with some of their behavioral issues with their dog. So I'm going to pick a topic each week. Excuse me while I get more comfortable. Pick a topic each week and review sort of basic feedback about that, and then take live questions at the end of that series. So the whole thing, I'm hoping, takes us 40 to 45 minutes each week. If you have a preference on things that you want me to cover, you want me to prioritize a topic, please let me know what that is, because I'm not married to any order. Everybody's struggling, and what's most important to me is helping you get the help you guys need. So today we're going to talk about resource guarding, and I really have held off even writing a blog or anything about resource guarding because it has the potential to be dangerous. And if I write something, what I find a lot of times, even in just generic information, is that people misread, they misinterpret, or they make an assumption that the guidance is extremely black and white, and nothing ever is when it comes to dogs and dog behavior. So I've been really hesitant to write anything down about this, but at least this way you have an opportunity to ask questions for clarification. One of the first things that I'll advise you to do is get really familiar with your dog's body language. And if you have not looked at the body language charts, I have them saved on my blog. They're created by Lily Chin from doggydrawings.net, and go sort of memorize them and really start to make an assessment of your dog's body language in a variety of settings. As we talk about resource guarding, we need to think about what kinds of things do our dogs guard. It can be toys, it can be bones, it can be food, it can be the food bowl even when it's empty. It can be space, meaning their crate, their dog bed, your pillow, those kinds of things. And it might even be you, guarding you from others. None of those things should be acceptable or tolerated in your home to allow your dog to do. Even things like one dog stealing a toy or a bone from another who just happens to be more submissive shouldn't really be okay. If they're playing, and they're working those things out together, that might be fine. But if one just goes to the other and steals it and runs with it, and the other looks at you like, seriously, what just happened here? You may need to take some action to be an advocate for the dog that's being stolen from. And you may need to give some guidance to the dog that's doing the thievery. What I'll say about resource guarding is there is a gap in your relationship with that dog somewhere. Most people want to fix the thing. They want to fix whatever problem seems to be most significant. And clearly resource guarding is a big deal because it has the potential for somebody to be injured. But it's not always just the thing. I would argue, strongly suggest, that if you look around the rest of the experiences you're having with your dog, there are gaps in the relationship. There are gaps in the respect level that dog has for you and or others, including other animals in your home. So you need to really up the ante on structure, leadership, rules, boundaries, obedience in every aspect of that dog's life. Does it have to be forever? Maybe not, though we know most dogs tend to thrive when they are under a greater level of structure. But you might not have to be quite so rigid forever, but at least for the next several weeks while you're working on the resource guarding situation, the rules need to be very strict, very clear, and followed through by everybody in the home every single time they are that those things are taking place. So up your obedience, up your structure, up your leadership, all around every aspect of that dog's life. Move to a situation, some people call it nothing in life is free. Some will call it learn to earn. But basically there are no freebies, right? If your dog is going to have the privilege of a toy or a bone, they are not left out on the floor for free access anytime the dog wants to go claim it. Those toys are permission-based. They are put away, and they're brought out only when you deem it appropriate for the dog to have it. They're taken away and put away when you decide that time's up, so to speak. Sorry, not sure what they're hearing out there. You're really going to want to work on a very strong out command, and I'll talk a little bit in a minute about how to teach that, and a very strong leave it command. In my definition, leave it is things they should never take, right? It would be shoes, goose poop on the street, chewing the rug, anything that really is non-negotiable, they can't have it at all. Out means it's in your mouth. I want it. I want you to freely give it to me. And so when I call for out, when I'm teaching, I will often exchange that for something else. That rule does not apply right away for dogs that are resource guarding against humans and their food bowl. But the outcome, and I'll come back to that, so remind me. But out is, you have it, I want it. If you give it to me, I will often reward you with something potentially better, and I will give the thing back to you. It doesn't mean that you're never going to have it. It comes back on my terms, maybe in those training rounds or maybe tomorrow. So really start to look at the language and the clarity of expectation you have in those moments. Be sure that you're prepared, that sort of muscle memory and mental memory kick in to use the right language in those situations. So the other piece of that is, and I just sort of jumped around myself, so I'm going to pause there for a second and regroup. Out and leave it, critically important. I'm going to move into talking a little bit about what I want you to do with toys and bones and that sort of thing if the dog is going to be guarding against another dog. We use tethers significantly in training. I tell people to use tethering when they have a puppy, when they have a new dog, and in this scenario, when you have a dog that has an attitude problem. So what you might do is if you have great recall or great verbal influence over the dog that's not misbehaving, that's fine. If you have problems with both, you may need to tether both. And that might be to an immobile object in your home. You might need to put a hook kind of thing into the stud wall and run a slip lead or leash through it so that they are permanently mounted there. I would rather do that for some period of time than to risk a fight breaking out that gets dogs injured or humans bit or children in the crossfire. So they cost a whole lot of nothing and the walls are easily patched. So tether the dog at a time that you're going to give him these toys so that he can't go take it from the other one, right? You're going to build your way to having them leashed where he has more mobility. Maybe he's going to eventually start dragging that leash around, but he's got to learn to observe the other dog with a toy, for him to have his toy, and for them to be taken away on your terms. So I hope this is making a little bit of sense in that regard. I'm going to move into the food topic just a little bit because I think this is one of the big ones and where we get into issues with children and humans who are more likely to be bit under those circumstances. So if you have a dog that's willing to guard his bowl from you, whether it's got food in it or not, there are protocols that we follow to start really trying to get that under control. And it does require tethering the dog to something immobile. So if you put the dog on a tether that he cannot move past the length of the leash, you need to determine how far that is. At what point is the threshold? And I have people put a piece of painter's tape or some marker down on the ground that says, do not pass this line. And basically what you're going to do is have a second leash, ideally a slip lead on the dog, that you are holding. So you can move the dog back or to the side, he just can't come at you. And so the first thing that we begin with that is the sit and wait for the food bowl. I don't put it into range of the dog immediately. I sit it right outside of range with a few pieces of kibble in it, not their entire portion. When he is well seated and calm, and that's the important piece, he has to be respectful of me walking up with that bowl, putting it down, and waiting. If he can't do that, he is not fed in that moment. Yep. So I know some of you are like, oh, that's harsh. I personally don't really care. Your dog missing a couple of meals is not going to hurt him. And having a very powerful conversation about you being in control of food is uber critical. So if his feet leave the ground, he attempts to lunge for that food bowl, he attempts to pop it out of your hand, any of those things, or he can't be still. He's just like, oh my God, food. He's not going to eat in that moment. I'll walk away with the food bowl, put it away, and we'll try again later. Now remember, this is an assumption that the only big risk to you is around feeding and his bowl and not other aggression areas inside daily life. Assuming he can wait, I will use my foot and slide that bowl into range, right? When he's finished, I'm going to use my slip lead and tell him out, right? Guide him a few steps away from the bowl, require him to sit, and then take something and sweep that object away, sweep that bowl back into my range. So remember that piece of tape we have on the floor, right? And I'm going to do that for a series of handfuls of kibble until he's had his entire portion. If at any time he screws up, the meal ends, whether that was one portion of food or the last portion of food. You're then going to progress your way to being able to sit the bowl down, right, and move it into his space. If you need to, there's an intermediate step where you might need to be hand feeding the dog, where you'll sit sort of at an angle to him, hold out a hand with just, and I'm just showing a couple hands, hold out a hand just into range, right, with a few kibble in it, again, waiting on respectful behavior and letting him eat from your hand, right? And so there's more. There's more details that I could cover in this, but in the name of time, I'm just kind of giving you the highlights. So this is not a blueprint. This is suggestions, and you've got to read your dog's body language. Then I'm going to move to where I can put that bowl down, and I can take that bowl away without the tools and without the footwork, right? Again, every step of the way, anytime the dog shows attitude, insignificant little tiny tidbits of attitude, meal's done. I want to have a very powerful conversation with that dog. And so we do this over and over and over. We're teaching the out command by having him out the bowl and go sit down. I physically want him to step back a couple of steps and wait patiently for me to take that bowl away from him. I'll say this also. If you have multiple dogs in your house and you're feeding, whenever you feed them, even if it's separated or in their crates, take the bowls away when they are empty. There is no reason for them to be left on the floor for another dog to go investigate to see if there were any remainders or leftovers. They can't guard and get attitude over bowls that are not present. So that's one management piece of the puzzle. Anyway, then you're going to start putting more and more food into the portion, right? So he's in there, he's digging a mouthful of food. You're going to out him and there will be food left in the bowl. He's got to step away from a bowl of food. That becomes more of a challenge. And then I get really tempting. I put wet food in there or something really delicious, and I start outing him with those items left in the bowl, right? So now we're really talking temptation and challenge and really starting to have him understand he's got to give up whatever it is. This is usually the stage that I will start offering when he goes back and sits down, especially if he starts doing it on his own, and he will. I will reward him with something even better than what's in the bowl, right? It might be freeze-dried beef liver, or a little piece of roast beef, or a little piece of chicken. Again, this assumes you have reached the point where he can take stuff from your hand without doing any sort of teeth on skin kind of attitude. So again, it's all progressive and it's all dependent on the previous stages. Okay. Somewhere along the line, I'm going to release him from the tether so that I'm just managing the leash. And now we're having more of an interaction together, more relationship building, more trust is starting to show up. And then eventually I'm going to move towards not having him on a leash at all. Also layered into this is I want him to, so again, let me back up for a second. When I'm outing him and I'm popping that leash just a little bit and guiding him out of that bowl and requiring him to sit down, you're going to take a physical step, move towards him when you do that. For a lot of people, that is fearful. For you, right? So you're like, oh my God, I have to step towards a dog that has traditionally lunged at me, right? So if you're not ready, if you are not emotionally and physically and mentally prepared for these exercises, don't do them. The dog will read you like an open book. But what's going to happen by you moving towards the bowl is he's going to start to anticipate when you step to the bowl, he's got to step out. And it will become an automatic out for him. You walk forward, he sits down a couple of steps away from the bowl. And that's really where we're headed with this, that anytime he's eating and a human approaches, he leaves his bowl alone. Okay? And I've done this a lot of times with a lot of dogs, and I've done it with people just consulting with them as well. So it does work. There was something I was just going to add about. Oh, the other thing that I'll say, for dogs that are guarding food, you want to teach them not to take dropped food off the floor. So this goes back to your leave it command. If that food is not in his bowl or offered from your hand to his mouth, he should never touch it, right? So leave it's critical. And so in this process, I'll start dropping food outside the bowl, and we'll practice the leave it command. I will heel him, and there'll be chicken and roast beef all along the way, and he's got to walk past it without putting his nose down to take those things. So yes, there's a lot of protocols to this and a lot of effort, but really within a couple of weeks, and I've done this many times, within a couple of weeks, you can start changing the dog's opinion of what he sees in that food bowl and how he sees you as the controller of those resources. So let me just look at my notes here for a second. Yep. So I think that's kind of the key highlights I wanted to mention. I am going to pause here and see what questions. Let me just back up a little bit. I'm going to see if there are any questions in the post. So, hey Maggie, hi Brittany, Cheryl, Mandy, Beth Wilson. What do you do if the dog begins to act nuts, aggressive while being tethered? Well, he certainly wouldn't eat, right? So if that's the only time you see him really displaying sort of attitude or anxiety, I'm going to do tethering work with him that has nothing to do with being fed. So I would tether him on place. I would tether him to the deck and have him do a downstay. There are a lot of dogs that protest restriction. If they've never been restrained in any way, the first time you take away their freedom of going and running and doing whatever they want, and just having to be stationary, they can protest a whole lot. So I would really start working on the obedience, place command, down stay, sit stay. There's a technique on my blog called sit on the dog. Some people argue it ought to be called sit on the leash, because really that's what you're doing. But it is really starting to do that restraint and have the dog learn to calm down and stay put. So if he can't do that, he's not ready for the food exercises yet, and that's where I would start. So if that doesn't answer your question, Beth, chime back in. Hi, Joy. Give little Luke love for me. So I've lost a couple people on Periscope. If you all have questions, please let me know what they are. Siobhan Winter, anything to add? Do any of you have a dog that's resource guarding? Yes, no, maybe. How about some of those little Facebook likes and love buttons and all that kind of stuff? So just begin with practice on the tether with no distraction. Yeah, I always tell people, notice if your dog can't do something in a low or no distracting environment, he's certainly not going to be able to do it under arousal. So always start there. And then you're going to progress your way through the 3 Ds. Duration, so that's how long he has to stay in a place or a state of mind. Distance, how far away can you get and him still do the work? And distraction, that's the level of distractions that you start increasing. So even like I mentioned with a dog that we're practicing leave it, the distraction gets higher and higher in that there's going to be a line of chicken dropped along the path that we're walking, and he's got to learn to not pick that up. Or I'm going to have him sit and wait, no leash, right? We're building our way here, and I'm going to rain food down all around him. And then I'm going to recall him out of that to his food bowl, and he's got to leave behind what I told him. Because think about it, if you have little kids who are flinging hot dogs from the high chair or whatever, I don't want the dog learning that anything that child is dropping is accessible to him, because that baby's going to become more mobile and have food in its hand. I don't want the dog thinking he can have any of that. So leave it critical. And so is the out command, meaning if your face is in a bowl of food and I tell you out, I want you backing away and sitting down until I decide what's going to happen with that food bowl. I may release you to go back into it, and I may put something else in it, or I may take it away. I will say this about the out. When you start outing a dog from their food bowl, especially if you've had to give any corrections, and you will, because they're going to test whether they really have to come out of that bowl or not. So you might have to up the level of correction. A slip lead might not be enough. A martingale might not be enough. You may have to go to a prong or an e-collar. Shoot me now if you go, oh my God, I could never do that. But let me tell you, I would rather e-collar correct a dog for not outing a bowl and teaching him to be respectful and mannerly around food than for him to bite you, your child, or somebody else and be euthanized because I didn't want to use a collar to correct him. So, just my opinion. So let's see what Siobhan wrote. Like Dana mentioned, this is a baseline. Relationship comes first. Respect, understand, and trust before any methods are going. True. Absolutely true. So, Brittany, how is the dog? Oh, yeah, she's doing well since we've talked. Great. So, Brittany Brooks, who's on here, Brittany Brooks Griffin, and they're running a rescue out of, is it Wingate, Brittany? Wingate area? Anyway, they called or emailed not too long ago about a dog that was having some resource guarding. We chatted, so just in really an email consultation, they were able to get some very specific guidance. So don't hesitate to think about a phone consult or that sort of thing. So Gwen Kalen writes, I had a foster that would not give toys back. How can you teach them to out when they will not ever give it to you? She was not food motivated. Monroe for Brittany's rescue. Good question, Gwen. So this is an example too, like if you're playing tug with a dog, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, I shouldn't ever let the dog have the thing. That's not entirely true. And that's a topic for another conversation. But the way we teach out to puppies and dogs that we're doing gameplay with is the toy goes dead, right? So toys are a whole lot more fun if you are engaged in making that toy alive and lively, right? So if I'm playing with a toy and all of a sudden I quit and I'm just holding it still and the toy now has no more life, at some point the dog's going to get bored, release the mouth, and walk away. Maybe it's a step or two or a turn of the head or whatever, but at some point the mouth will disengage. When that happens, you name that motion, that movement of removal out, and you reward it. And then the toy comes back to life and we play again, right? So outing anything does not mean that's the final, you can't have it anymore. You get it back. Especially in the teaching phase, you get it back. So we name what the dog takes action on, we reward that, and then we go play again until the dog really starts to understand giving something up is not so bad. His mouth coming off on command gets rewarded, and they get the thing back. And so they get to play with you to do that. When you are ready for the game to be over, right, you take the toy, mouth, you say out, mouth comes off, you say enough, or that's it, all done, night-night toy, I don't care what you call it, have some phrase that ends the play. And then the toy goes away. Right? So remember, we're not leaving toys out. There's no big basket of toys for the dog to go, oh, let's do this one and that one, and 17 of them are scattered all over the floor. While we're working on these things, toys come out on your terms and permission-based only. Okay? Let's see what else we got for questions. Okay, any other questions? Is this helpful? Are you guys learning? Any feedback for format or any of that kind of stuff? What topic would you like to discuss next week? Looking for some conversation here. Great response to Gwen. Thank you, Natalie. How's my Moses boy doing? Yeah, Beth, what about teaching place? Good, Natalie. I'm glad to hear it. I am in the process of converting all my dogs to raw food as well, inspired by your efforts. So I have you in part to thank for my final kick in the pants to do that. Now I need to do it for myself. Oh, thanks for letting me know, Siobhan. I'm not a pro at this, so I'll pause. Thanks for telling me that. Okay, so how to start from the beginning with a dog that has been running your house. So Beth is asking about teaching place and from, I guess, start to finish, and a dog that really is sort of unruly is what I'm guessing, a little busy. Two things. Beth, go look at the Sit on the Dog blog. So thecaninecoachblog.com. Look up Sit on the Dog. Start with that exercise as well. It's basically you sitting in a chair. The leash is under your hiney. The dog has about 12 to 18 inches of leash left, just enough to lay down, but not enough to move around your chair or away. And you wait him out. You're going to read a book, watch TV, take a nap, do whatever you're going to do, but not engage with that dog at all. And he's going to learn to calm and to settle when you need him to. And then on my blog as well, and on the YouTube channel, look up Teaching Place. The instructions are there, start to finish, the exact same protocol that I follow with every dog who comes here. And that should help you really get started. So I won't go into all the details, but hit me up if you get questions about what I've written there. Kelly Blankenship asked about aggression towards other dogs when going for walks on a leash. Yep, so I'm going to refer you out to the blog there as well. Look up leash reactivity. In short, you need a couple of things, and it's obedience and obedience. So just like I started this conversation, there's a gap in the relationship somewhere. And you've really got to start layering in the rules and structure and all of those things, and having language and expectations that your dog understands and knows that you will hold him accountable to. And then you're going to start moving out into the real world. If he is doing a very good heel, he cannot also be simultaneously blowing up and lunging at another dog. So you're going to have to start correcting him making some mistakes. But you're also, this blog talks about using sort of a setup dog. So find a friend or family member who's got a dog that's pretty well mannered and that they will listen to your instructions, and you set up the scene. You're going to sort of ebb and flow towards a dog that's really just sitting stationary. And you're going to work your dog to manage his heel, but you're going to U-turn him, right? So that you're going to add create release of pressure by adding distance. And when he does that, you're going to ask him to sit, ask him to watch you. Down will be too hard the first 95 times you attempt this, so stick with things that are easy. But you're going to reward him for doing the things that you're asking. When he starts checking in with you on his own, right? So you're going to do a lot of repetitions. He's going to see the thing that normally upsets him. He's going to check in with you, and you're going to go, cheerleaders and pom-poms, oh my God, the dog is finally thinking, he's making decisions, and he's working for and with me. You'll reward those things. Siobhan had a great, Siobhan, I don't know if you posted that on our Facebook or not. If you didn't but she had a great video with I think she did put it on Facebook. There was a dog who's had 5 different trainers and was not able to walk her dog, and there's video of this dog on the Greenway. In there, it mentions, make sure we're not using food to lure the dog. We're not trying to just say, hey, let us distract you and sort of create this, oh my God, don't look over there. But we're wanting the dog to learn, I can see that thing, make a smarter choice. Mom's going to be happy about it and reward me for thinking and using my brain. So that reactivity blog should be able to help you get started on that. Getting 2 new 7-month-old. Good luck with litter mates, my friend. They've lived outside their whole lives. So I would tether them, Natalie. I would have them attached to me a significant amount of the time. You need to work them independent of each other, of course. They can have some playtime, obviously, but work them one-on-one. Make sure they're in separate crates, all that kind of jazz. But even though they're 7 months old and a little more mature, I would start with long line leash walking. I need to do a video on that. There's a couple out there, but it's that pressure and release work, and that I posted one day before yesterday of me being at the park with Chief and talking about long line work, where you let them have some room to move, but yet you sort of surprise and are turning and going opposite directions. It teaches them focus. It gets them dialed in. You're then going to start working on things like watch me and leave it, waiting on their food bowl, waiting to exit their crate, using language and release cues that they're going to start to understand. I would then move into sit on the dog. I would move into place. Hey! Hold on a second. Enough! Enough! Sorry about that. I have a 15-week-old Boston Terrier here who's getting a little unruly. Where was I? Oh, tethering, sit on the dog, teach the place command. Don't worry so much about heel until you have focus on this long line work, and then start layering in the stay. Go back to those 3Ds. Start adding the duration, the distance, and the distraction level, and build your way through all of that. I hope that helps. We have a foster pretty insecure about meeting new people. Love some ideas on introing to kids. I know enough about adults, but kids are wild card. Yes, they certainly are. One of the things that I do, Nikki, is go to places where children are, but have no real interaction. Now that can be tricky because you bring a really cute dog and all the kids want to come pet, but I use those as educational moments. I take the dog and start really reading their body language. So I'm back to how we started this conversation, making sure they are not showing signs of stress or anxiety or that kind of stuff. If I can't get them calm in the environment where the sounds and smells and activities of children are, they are certainly not ready to be in spatial contact with kids. So go to parks, that sort of thing. If you have a friend who has a child-savvy dog, a dog-savvy child, invite them over and have your dog tethered on a place, for example, or in the crate, and just have the child enter the room, read body language, see what that's telling you. And only the dog will tell you when he's ready for the next step. And that may then be, so similar to adults, right? Child comes in, if he's calm, then I offer the dog reward. I give him something really special for the presence of children. Then I'll build my way to the kid tosses it. So, hold on. Okay. Come here. Come here. And sometimes you have to separate them. So this is Penny. Say hi, Penny. She's crazy. She's no biting, no biting. Anyway, you're then going to progress your way to the child tossing something. So I would use that same painter's tape on the ground and know exactly how far that dog can reach. Have the kids stand outside it and toss reward, toss reward, toss reward, as often as you can do. And then when you're seeing the dog start to have some comfort and some excitement, not too much excitement, you don't want them jumping and bouncing on the kid, but like, oh wow, I'm interested, I'm curious, then you're going to, with him on a leash, maybe have the kid start to approach. Make sure he's got a good sit stay. Make sure he's going to have 4 on the floor as that child starts to progress into interaction. But again, at any step of the way, you're reading him and it's not seeming suitable, don't go any further. And make sure that the kid's going to listen and take the steps and not try to push too far, not be really disappointed if you tell them no, not today. Hi, Christina. I love little Dexter. Great, Luke misses his buddy. What's wrong, Siobhan? Why are you saying, oh my God? Oh, at the puppy? At this little puppy? Say hi, everybody. Say hi. This is Penny. And Penny's little sister, or actually her older sister, is here. And they were playing and getting a little rowdy. So we had to stop. Yes. All right. Yeah, she's cute. She's only about 15 weeks old. All right, friends, other questions? I hope this is helpful. And like I said, I'm going to try it again soon. I'm planning on, I don't know, is Wednesday night good? Is Tuesday night better? And help me decide what topic we're going to use next week. She's posing for the camera. She is. She's so cute. All right. Anything else? My pleasure, Natalie. I really do. My goal, especially going into fall and more importantly to 2017, is to try to do more what I'll call one-to-many feedback and information and education than just having a dog at a time attached to a leash and working through those things. I know a lot of people are struggling, and I'm trying to help make things better. All right, if there are no more questions, I'm going to pause for about 20 seconds. And if there are no more questions, we'll cut it off for tonight. And I will see you next week. So I guess I get to pick the topic because none of you shared any input with me. So I'll pick the topic and I'll get that posted tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you for coming.